Hi, Aries. All right. So I waited to do your reading until the evening because it's going to be a little bit of a slow month and it's going to be frustrating. And so I didn't want to do it when I was like all hyped and had a bunch of energy during the day and get you all hyped when really what you need is to calm down a little and just take it easy. And that's always a hard sell with you guys. So instead of just telling you that, which, just irritates you, and I can understand why because it's not very productive. Calm down, don't do that is, well, okay, I can't help it. So instead, I have devised a strategy of what you can do during this insane period of all these different retrogrades that are, they're really getting to you. And like I said in the Gemini reading, there is this feeling of trying to downshift, into third while the emergency brake, while the handbrake is still on. You want to go, but where are you going? Venus is retrograde. Mercury is going to go retrograde. And what you're left with is time to reflect, which you guys don't necessarily like or know how to do very well. So, after looking at what the planets are doing, and it's not that it's not going to be an intuitive reading, it is going to be an intuitive reading, but for you guys in particular, because it is your birthday time, I felt that it was only fair to really take a comprehensive look at what's going on with you guys. That's not why the reading is late. The reading is just late because there are certain signs that I have constant issues with during the retrogrades, and I needed to do those first just because they become very problematic later. I'm unable to communicate well as the shadow continues, right? So by the time the retrograde actually gets here, mid-April, actually at the beginning of April, and kind of lasts until the beginning of next month, my ability to get the message across becomes less and less camera friendly, if you will. It doesn't really affect my readings ever, but it affects technology. It affects, reading for thousands of people. Sure, it affects that. So here we are. So happy birthday, and kind of sucks to be told during your birthday season that things are going to be the opposite of which you love, which is speed and progress. So why is that happening? Why would the universe be doing that right now? What can we learn from this? What can we glean from this experience, which seemingly on the surface seems to be the antithesis of what we want and grates at us like sand? What good could it possibly serve? I think the retrogrades here are trying to show us that there are new ways to look at what we think we are sure of. Remember how I said last month that my mom is really sure of everything, and it makes her such a good businesswoman, and it makes her so good at being the matriarch of her family, and all of those things that makes her very successful, mashallah. So now I'm saying maybe there's a different way to look at that, right? What do I mean? I know I'm being a little bit vague. I'm hoping these cards are gonna help me out here, make some sense of this for you. I know what I want to say. It's just a tricky, it's a bit of a mind flip. So you take what you do really well and you take the antithesis of that really grates on your nerves, and you find a way to use that thing that really grates on your nerves as a positive. You embrace it and you listen to it, and you don't just on instinct and on habit just discount it because it is associated with the thing that you don't like. And that's very abstract, so let's put it into very concrete terms. Aries are very brave. Let's take that as an example. Okay? Whatever is going to happen, you can face it. So when something happens, or when something is going to happen, when you can feel that something is going to happen, your immediate response, whether it be in a relationship with someone or in a business or even with yourself, with your internal work, right? When you can sense this coming, or when you can sense deception, instead of thinking, okay, I have these two ways that I can respond to this, right? Instead of being binary in your thinking and saying, I can do this or this, I can move towards this problem or I can move away from this problem. What Aries has a tendency to do, because it is Mars movement energy, it is by nature very courageous, which is 99% of the time such a great thing. It will propel Aries towards this, into the confrontation. Now, during a retrograde period, that's a mistake. So what can you do instead? How can you mitigate your need to deal with things head on and just having that fire in you where you can't even kind of help that you're doing it? How do you resolve that when it's put up against cosmically the brakes being put on everything and everything just being ground to a halt? Everything in your nature is like, like I have to accomplish, like the world needs to get on board with what I need to do, because the past couple of years have seen me really not doing this, and I need this in my life. I need a beautiful island to row towards, as it says in the I Ching, or a beautiful destination to walk toward. And I don't really mind how much I have to carry, and I don't really mind how far it is, and I don't really mind that I'm doing it by myself. I'd rather enjoy it, but I need this. And so, because you need it and because you're walking towards it, when you sense something coming that isn't the best, Aries has a tendency to deal with that thing head on. There is a sense within you of, well, then let's get it cracking. Like, if that's what you want to do, I've often come across Aries people who will give you the impression, like, once they realize, like, what the game is, like, they'll just say to you, oh, that's what we're doing? Because, I just needed to know what game we're playing. Now that I know what game we're playing, we're good, let's play. But, Aries is ready, is what I'm saying. And during a retrograde, that's going to be hard, because you have cards of movement here, and you are going to want to move, but your progress being thwarted must be seen as a good thing. And how can you do that? Well, first of all, you've got some great cards, supporting that good thing, right? You've got some really positive, stable energy coming towards you into this new year for you. You've got, a great outcome card, the luck of the world, the blessing of the world, the completion of a cycle, the beginning of a new cycle. What a beautiful card to get, right, in your birthday month. So you have great cards here, but, look at it. It's, hold on, let me show you. There's some hurdles here. Slow moving. The need for something more. The need for a destination, not just direction, not just drive, not just success, direction. The anticipation of and walking right into calamity. Being discerning enough to pick up on the fact that there is duplicity and mendacity going on here, and still wanting to confront it. Very, very Aries. And just wanting to confront it and keep it moving. Let's go on to the next thing. Let's go into this progress and success and material luck, which is here for you this month, for sure. And this sense of self, Aries, let's be honest, when your money is good, then your self-image is great. When your sense of self is great and your self-image is high up because you're making good money and you feel good about yourself, when all those things are on point, you're quite open to listen to all sorts of ideas from all sorts of people, which is great. When you're not feeling like this, when you're not feeling great about yourself, you can be pretty closed-minded. How you feel about yourself and how you see yourself really does determine what you hear when people talk or what you interpret when people speak. Right? So you being here in April is fantastic, because the better you feel, the more you're able to grow, because the more open you are to other people's understanding. Now, what I'm saying is that you need to be just as open to your own understanding. And here's that mind flip that I was talking about. So you have this courage that pushes you through things, okay? And that's a great thing. But sometimes even the antithesis of courage, which would be fear, is a beneficial thing to you and not a liability and not something to be pushed aside. Now, what do I mean? This is an abstract concept, and the best way I know how to explain it is by telling you a story. Perhaps that's just my particular way. I am a storyteller. I am very much in the tradition of that shamanic, South Asian world, where in South Asian culture, everything is kind of relayed through a story. Ancient Hindu texts didn't really exist for a long time because all the history was oral and was passed down through stories and songs and so on and so forth. So perhaps it's just the way my epigenetics and genetics have, made my neural net, that everything kind of finds its way or its point through a story. So if you don't like my stories, or if you think I'm just talking about myself, move right the F along. Sorry. Mars and Venus in Aries. This retrograde has got me right here, right here, right here. So let me tell you a story that explains to you how you can use the antithesis of the thing that you love in your favor. In this case, we're using courage and fear. I'm going to give you an example that involves my mom again, but you should be happy for that, because she's like Tony Robbins times a million. She is like the boss of all boss Aries people. You'd all love her if you met her. So my brother, my sister-in-law, and I, we go, this is like almost 10 years ago, we find out about this gorgeous house out in Pennsylvania somewhere. I still remember the name of the street, which is super creepy. Um, not it wasn't a super creepy name. It's just that when I tell you what happened, it'll be creepy to you that I remember the street. So I was like, oh, that's a cool street name. I'm not even going to mention it. So we get there and the house is like incredible. Like we were in the market to buy a house, right? Like my parents were like, we don't want to live in the city all the time anymore. We like worked all our lives. We want to retire and like live somewhere where there's like green and grass, and we're tired of living in Manhattan. Fine. So my brother and my sister-in-law and I took it upon ourselves to like find them a place, right? So we're like going to see all these houses. We're going to all these uh, we didn't do open houses. We just like went and saw some places. So we go and see this place, and this place is incredible. Like it was built like it was on the beach, but it wasn't on the beach. And instead of like the whole house was built as if it was in Malibu on the water, okay? But when all the back of the house where everything was glass opened onto where in Malibu there would be water, there was this just like gorgeous, huge, super like landscaped pool area. And all the stuff that was used in that area was like this grotto kind of marble. And there was like this huge double pool. There was this like incredible grilling area. Like it was like a party house, like hangout house. And then to top it all off, out there next to these huge pools was this strange little building, and it was the pool house. And the inside of it was just this gigantic spiral, and it was all mirrors. And there was a shower at the top that was with the skylight, and it was totally open. And it was just, and you were taking a shower surrounded by like spiral mirrors with the light coming. It was crazy. Like I walked in there and I turned around. My brother came in after me, and he was like, "This is like some Boogie Nights shit." Like it seriously looked like crazy party. Like, and you know, we're just running around going, "Oh my god, we're gonna have the best parties here. Oh my god, we're gonna bring everyone from the city here. Oh my god, we have to get this house." We go downstairs. The guy's like, we go in the basement. In the basement, it looks like a club. Like, and I'm like, I have a lot of friends that are musicians. Like, almost everyone that I hang out with consistently is a musician. So as soon as I walked in there, I was like, you know how you can hear when you hang out in studios a lot, you can hear it when you're in that space because of the way the sound is muffled. So as soon as I walked downstairs, I was like, why is this soundproofed? And the broker looked at me and she was like, oh, because like you can have parties down here and there's like this really loud sound system down here. And my brother was like, oh shit, it's like a club. We could have a club, yo, you know. So we're like hyped, okay? Trust me, this story has such a good point that you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm so glad you told this story. Okay, so I'm not going to lie. I had like a weird like cocaine moment when I was in the glass like spiral pool house, strange. It just, what do I mean by a cocaine moment? Like I just felt like the debauched energy of the place, right? There was like major, like that house was built for debauchery. It was just so obvious. Like there was nothing that pool house was built for other than doing massive amounts of cocaine and like having sex where you could just see the person you're having sex with from every angle. It was just obvious, right? So, you know, I'm a bit of like a prudish person when it comes to stuff like that. So I was just a little bit like, but I still really liked the house. I was like totally seeing the potential. The party potential was insane. Of course, we weren't necessarily thinking of it as like a place that my parents would be happy, but it would be awesome for us. So we tell my mom and we're like, oh my God. Like we come home and we're just like jumping off the balls, like manic happy. We're like, we found the place. Oh my God, you would not believe it. And we like get them all hyped. And we call the broker and we're like, we're like, all three of us, we're like, just do it. Just trust us, just do it. Just put an offer on, just do it, just do it, just do it. And my mom, who I get my particular, gifts, like all intelligence comes from the mother. Now that's been proven scientifically. And most of my like epigenetic training also comes from my mom. My mom is extremely, extremely gifted and has never done this work for any sort of like profit. She's been a nurse and the owner of a company all her life. She's never, but she does it for people all the time. She's just never done it for money. So one of the things that she does a lot is that people will ask her to ask a question and then go to sleep. And then she'll have a dream, like a very, very vivid dream, not at night, but in the morning. Like she gets up at 3 a.m. because there's this like special prayer that you can do as a Muslim in the middle of the night if you want to. So she gets up and does that. And then when she goes back to sleep, it's like the dreams that she has between like 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. or something like that are the ones that are premonitory. And I've noticed that if I get up at that time and then go back to bed, it's also the same with me. I like to sleep. So anyway, so we told her, we're like hyped and we're like, oh my God, I'm gonna read this house. And me and Anu, my sister-in-law, were like, the party's what? Like, we're just like, we're being so ratchet. And my mom's like, okay, all right. Now, as an Aries, to bring this all back around to you guys, as an Aries, her instinct about everything, everywhere, all the time is, I am not afraid. Like the reason that she was able to go from just someone like a recruit who went into the Air Force to becoming a captain so quickly was just because every time senior officers would come onto the Air Force base, someone female from the female side of the military had to be there to also greet them, and nobody wanted to go. And even though my mom was like not so high in rank, when like people, the commanding officers would come around and say, okay, so-and-so is coming, or so-and-so head of state is coming, and we need someone representative of here, the women would be like, and my mom would be like, right here, I do it, and then it got to the point where she got to know all those people in positions of power so well that the men on her own base who were outranked her by a lot would come to her and say, hey, the next time so-and-so comes by, could you talk to him maybe about our budget or about this or about that? Because he seems to listen to you. And the reason she's always telling us these stories, and we really appreciate it, is because what she's always drilled into our heads is that, fortune favors the bold. And you have to be confident, and you have to know that what you have to offer in terms of a contribution is valuable. And one of the most valuable contributions you can make is just to be a confident, brave person, and not to ever look down on anyone, but also by the same token to never look up at anyone. Everyone is here. And if they can't be here with you, forget them. She's the same woman who has often said to me, if that person was dying in front of you, you should walk over their body and keep moving. You know what I mean? So her entire personality is based on this Aries soldier, archetype. That's what she is. She is the Diana, right? So for this woman to have the reaction that I'm about to tell you is, I was so impressed with her, because I think a lot of times I can write Aries off as being one-dimensional because you guys are so go, go, go. And for me, in my obtuse Gemini mind, sometimes I feel like if you're not pensive and tortured and mired in self-doubt, then perhaps you're not quite as intelligent, or perhaps you're not. I'm just being honest. Everyone has these stupid hang-ups, right? But she taught me something through this experience about how incredibly intelligent Aries actually are, especially if they have learned to subdue their ego. And I think that my mom would never be able to do this. I would just like to point out, before I tell you what happened, that my mom would never be able to do this if she wasn't a religious person. I think the thing that has kept her like holding back, the phoenix has kept her from going over the edge of just being like, is the humility of having a religion, or the humility of feeling and believing very deeply that there is something much bigger than her, right? Keeps her humble. So we tell her all this stuff, and she says, as we were pretty sure she was going to say, okay, I'll do my thing and I will tell you what I see. I'll do my thing. And she reads like a passage from the Quran, and it only works if you like pray all the time and stuff. So actually it works for me, and I don't pray all the time. So anyway, so she says, okay, I'll do this thing and then I'll get back to you and I'll tell you after. So we set up the appointment with the realtor to go in the very next day and sign the papers, and she's going to meet us at the house, and we're going to take my parents to the house, and blah, 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 and it's all set and it's all done, and oh my God, we're getting this house. And my mom's like, cool, I'm just going to do this thing the night before. We're going in the morning. Cool, we're going. So the next day, we're set to go. We're in the car. We're all going. And my mom's like, I gotta talk to you. And I'm like, okay, what is it? And she's like, no, I gotta talk to you. Because we're like, all my siblings are in the car. Everybody's in the car. And I was like, oh, what'd I do? What'd I do? She's like, so like lean over in the front seat. My dad's driving. She's like, so I did the dream thing. And I was like, okay. She's like, when we get there, I'm not getting out of the car. I said, what? Are you mad? Like, what happened? What'd you see? Whoa, what's going on? She said, what'd you feel when you went down there? I said, where? Went down where? She said, you know where. In that dark room down there where you can't hear anything. What'd you feel when you went down there? And she was mad. She was bristling, actually. And I was like, okay, it's soundproofed, it's a little weird. And she was like, Umber, you wasted my time. She doesn't mince words. You wasted my time. You wasted your father's time. He could have been doing many other things for me. Oh my God. And for the first time in my life, last night, I had a dream that scared me. And I couldn't even keep it to I just turned around and told everybody in the car. I was like, Mom, I had a nightmare. Because my mom's never had a nightmare. My mom's never been afraid of anything. I've never even heard my mom say she was scared of anything. You don't understand, where we come from, the part of the world we come from, there is stuff that if I started to tell you about it, you'd be like, no. Seriously, that happened? Yes. There's all kinds of stuff that happens where we're from that's very supernatural and crazy. And, she's never used the word, afraid or fear or nightmare. I was like, what did you see? Mom, what? She was like, I can't even describe to you what you kids put me through, by associating me with this. And she was the most mad at me because she's like, you knew. So apparently she goes to sleep, she does her 3 a.m. thing or whatever. She goes to sleep and she sees the house. And oh my God. She saw that there, the basement of the house was full of very scary things. They were people, but they weren't behaving like people. and there was like someone got hurt. That's what she said. And I know she wasn't going to tell me anything more than that because she knows that like I'm like our dynamic has been since I was little, that she's like, you're so much more sensitive than you need to be. Like, you're made out of steel. I wish you would just behave as strong as you are and stop letting like this Cancer rising nonsense get to you and like being so emotional, you know. But she knows, but she respects the fact that I am like that, so she didn't want to tell me. But like as she was recounting it to me, my mom and I have this thing where like I can see the pictures in her head. My ex-husband actually worked on this with our son a lot when he was little, and they still do it, where he would like tell him things, but he would send him pictures in his head and see if he could see the pictures in his head. So like that, my mom and I do that just without having like a really close connection or anything. It just, I guess it's in the blood. So while she was telling the story, I could see what she saw. And so we get there. You know, she's telling me this as we're like on the road there. So we get there and, you know, she doesn't get out of the car. And the realtor is like, knows that like she's the boss, you know, so if the boss isn't getting out of the car, something's wrong. So she's like, hey, is that your mom in the car? And I'm like, oh, hey, oh my God, yes, it is. So I have some questions about that, because my mom was also, you know, really ticked off at the realtor, because she was like, you're supposed to tell people when houses have been used for certain things. And I was like, what are you talking? So she's like, go talk to the realtor. And like, instead of doing what you did yesterday, open your eyes. Like this time when you go in there, instead of going in there and seeing, you know, instead of superimposing your own view on what you want to see, which is my Aries, Venus, and Mars, right? Seeing what I want to see. She was like, go in there and really look. So I talked to the realtor and I was like, listen, you know, my mom just had, and she was like, why isn't your mom coming out and asking me herself? And I was like, she just doesn't, you know, she's not feeling all that well. So I have some questions. What was this house used for? And the woman's like, oh, the person who owned it was in the film industry. My dad had just been wandering around, kind of like really offended by the grotto pool spiral mirror. He was really like, what is this nonsense? Like, where did you bring us? Like, what kind of retirement did you think we were going to have? So when she said film industry, he was like, in Pennsylvania? Like, he just blurted it out. He couldn't help it. And me and my brother and I like made eye contact, you know, and then my sister-in-law and the three of us looked at each other, and then like all of a sudden we all knew, right? We all knew what had happened and the mistake that we had made. And then all of a sudden the mirrored pool house and the super crazy grotto Playboy mansion-y area, like all of it made sense. The soundproof room, however, which was really just a very creepy, you know, I had to push her on that. And I was like, okay, so it was used in the film industry. I wasn't going to like make her say porn. I wasn't, you know what I mean? Like she was like a nice lady. But, you know, I had instructions from, you know, the maestro on what I wasn't getting back in the car without like asking what happened, because like she wouldn't, you know, that wouldn't go over. So I was like, lady, did something happen in this house? And she was like, what? And I was like, why is he selling it? And why is it so cheap? Because it's like just the tile alone out there is worth a lot. Like, what's going on here? And she was like, oh, no, nothing happened. I was like, what happened in the basement? Something happened in the basement? And I was like, you know, you're supposed to tell me. Like, you have to tell me. Like, I have a real estate license. You have to tell. I have a real estate license just because my family's in real estate. And she was like, well, there was some unfortunate, you know. So a woman had died in that house under very strange circumstances. So we all got back in the car. My dad, of course, didn't say a word. You know, he was just like, like, y'all are fucked. So we get back in the car, we're driving, and my mom's like, wow, the three of you came out here looking at houses. Oh, we found the perfect house. Let's take mom to the most debauched, like, evil place that we could find. I was like, oh my God, Mom, I'm so sorry. My dad was like, you went in the pool house and you still brought us here? And I was like, I just thought it was like a weird marriage. So that's a really funny story, but the point of the story is actually really profound. The point is that she could have just been her normal self, which I explained to you is someone who's just not afraid of anything. She could have been like that. She's made, her life is based on not being afraid and just being bold. And like the way she got her visa was that she cut a line. There were like 500 people in line, and she got there, she went to the front of the line, and the guy was like, what are you doing? There's 500 people here. And she was like, oh, they just called my name. She was like, don't you see? They're calling me. You're going to get in so much trouble if you don't let me go in. And the guy was like, whoa, okay, go ahead, go in. And she like walked in, and they were like, who are you? And she was like, I'm the person getting the visa. And they're like, no, there's only one more visa left. We're closing. And she was like, great, that one's for me. They're like, who are you? We don't even have your name. She was like, write it down. So this woman who has like really built herself from just, you know, like very like meager beginnings into this person and built herself on this Aries principle of being bold, being brave, being brazen, being smart, strong, confident, knowing your worth, you know. This person used something that is an anathema to her, which is fear, as a very useful tool. See, she was put in a position where she couldn't really use her Aries nature. Well, what was she going to do? Get out and like curse the realtor out? The woman was like 75. What was she going to do? You know, the person who owned the house wasn't there. Whatever happened in that house, those people weren't there. You know, she berated me, but what else could she do, you know? So instead of railing against her fate, which would have just been useless, you know, nothing would have been accomplished by her just losing her temper and fuming in the car and just yelling and screaming. It's a waste of energy. Instead, she used her fear as a tool. She used her lack of speed, her need to sit still, as a tool. And the way she used it as a tool is to say, I am usually very courageous, but right now I'm afraid. Like for someone, you know, who can do the things that she can do and can see the things that she can see, and for her to say that she's afraid is a really big deal, especially to like her daughter that she's always kind of trying to, you know, like be the best for. Portray the strongest, you know, version of herself for. Actually, no, that's not even true. She doesn't have like a version. She just is. For her to so openly say, like, this scared me. It was very impressive. It showed a depth of character that I didn't think that you guys were capable of, which is waking up to how to use the things you don't like to your advantage. I always feel like Aries are just like, I like what I like. I want what I like. I like what I like. You know, and it's like, yeah, but there's no room for growth there. You know, if you're always just trying to like hit that like immediate gratification button, you know, where's the buildup? Where's the nuance? Where's the growth? But when her back was pushed against the wall, you know, the growth was there and the nuance was there. And it saved us from what would have been, you know, if her pride, for example, if she had identified more with her ego and hadn't, and more with her Aries, right? And hadn't modulated this and been like, no, she could have just overrided her fear and said, no, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to boldly move into this. It's a great deal, great price for such a huge place. We're going to take it. And it would have been a huge mistake. So that's a really long story, which I hope makes a lot of sense to you in terms of what you need to be doing this month and what you need to learn to move forward into this year, this beginning year, right? Last year was an end of a cycle, this beginning new, the start of a new cycle. What you need to understand here is that those things that you by nature cannot stand, so obstacle, lack of speed, being held back, fear, these things can be your greatest allies right now, because we're in the middle of 2 retrogrades and you have these things coming up where you feel and you know that there's some stuff coming up that you've got to deal with, and perhaps your fear and trepidation is necessary right now. You don't need to be hitting these walls. You know what I mean? If there's a wall here with a person, with a situation, with a relationship that you know is beyond you and really is going to call for some greater guidance now or some greater act of God, to rectify, you don't need to be the one, being in the mix, hitting your head against that wall. Let your daughter get out and talk to the realtor. Use it. Don't just sit there and hit your head against something and bloody yourself, because when it's time to move, it's going to move and not before that. I always have to say this to you guys, and I don't mind saying it. I'm saying it just as much to myself. But in this particular month, if you don't let what moves move and what doesn't move not move, you are going to get a concussion, because this month you're going to keep hitting your head against that wall and it is not going to budge. But when it starts to move, trust me when I tell you that things are looking so fantastic for you. Like I told you, the better you feel, the more you're going to be able to grow. But that growth starts with this shift, this necessary ability to see what we don't like as our friend. Does that make sense? I hope it does, because I'm having a hard time explaining it. I'm having a hard time articulating it. I think that's why the story was necessary for me. And I'm not really sure why it's hard for me to articulate it, except to say that it's so inherent to my nature as a Gemini to be able to do that, that perhaps the reason I can't articulate it is because I've never needed to, really. That's something that I do so easily that to watch my mom do it was actually kind of surreal, because I was like, whoa, she's capable of this. That's amazing. Like, I didn't think that she could see it from any other point of view but her own. And I know it's not her point of view to be scared. It's just not. So she's displaying something here that's got quite a lot of depth to it. Like it was, and I think that you're all capable of that. And I'm quite ashamed of myself for having doubted her in that way. I should have known that she would be great at that. Like, she's great at everything. I don't know why I thought she wouldn't be. But I feel this month, if you are able to, instead of hit your head against that wall, bring that wall down brick by brick by using what you hate to your advantage. If you come across any mirrored pool houses, walk the other way. I love you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed that story, and this was actually a really good reading. Happy birthday. I was not ignoring you. I love you guys. I'm going to stop before I get emotional. You guys are very close to my heart. I will see you in May, and I'll be in San Francisco from the 1st to the 8th, and from the 12th to the 18th, the time in the middle, between the 8th and the 12th, I'll be in LA. I'll be doing readings in all 3 of those places, and I'll be doing readings in New York from the 20th to May 1st, and then I'll be in Europe for 3 months straight. I'll also be doing readings there. However, my in-person reading slots for all 4 of those places, so Denmark, New York, San Francisco and LA are almost booked. So if you would like a private reading, please email me right away. I am not actually responding to emails until tomorrow morning. So if you've emailed me in the past couple of days, that is why I haven't responded, because it's a process. Okay. So there's that, but I will be responding to everyone tomorrow and sending you guys information. If you don't want to wait to hear from me and you would like to book a reading right away, please go to the Facebook page. There's a link on the channel in the top right where the channel art is, where you can click over to the Facebook page and go to the shop, and you can order a reading right from the shop, and I get the notification right away and I'll schedule you. So that's the easiest way if you don't want to wait for the whole hassle of reaching me, getting back to me, blah, blah, blah. Everything is the same and it's there and it's accessible. So there's that. Last thing, I have a book coming out in the spring called The Tarot of Inner Work. It will be available as an ebook and as an audiobook that I will narrate myself. And basically, it's a guide on how to use tarot to facilitate inner growth and the different healing modalities that I've come across and therapies that I've come across or that I've invented that have worked for me over the past 20 years with my clients in a comprehensive form. That's easy. And it will also be available as a hardcover, an actual, like a beautiful hardcover, right? So if you're like me and you love books and love the tactile beauty of a book, then get ready for a blue velvet beauty. Of course, blue velvet. So there's all of that. Crazy story, right? Crazy story. I love you guys so much. Happy birthday. I'll see you in May.